Hello, Dog Pound. As you've probably heard by now, Seaside Events and the Cleveland Browns have come together to plan the official Browns fan cruise on board the amazing Royal Caribbean Liberty of the Seas, sailing out of Fort Lauderdale March 3rd through the 7th of 2025. I'm Nick Valinchak, and I can't wait to sail away with you on the second Browns fan cruise. This journey promises fun, adventure, and I'm sure we'll talk a little football along the way. For more information, visit brownsfancruise.com, and let's gear up to paint the seas orange and brown. And it is Monday, September 30th. Tomorrow, it'll be like 1995, East 1999 Eternal, first of the month's Bone Thugs and Harmony style. But I am joined today by the man, the myth, the Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour, the safety valve himself, Seth DeValve. Seth, how are we doing today?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did they ever call you the safety valve?
I believe they did in Cleveland. I don't know if they did inside the building, but I know that was a nickname on social media. Yeah.
Okay, I was hoping so, because here I am thinking to myself, Fox is willing to dish out millions of dollars to have Tom Brady come into the booth, but he's not going to come up with nothing as creative as that. But I guess I was a few years too late on coining that terminology. But I'm excited to have you join me today. I'm excited to have you join us on the cruise. So I just want to talk to you a little bit. What was it like during your time with the Cleveland Browns?
Man, it was an awesome experience. Of all the franchises that I played for, Cleveland was by far the most engaged from a fan base perspective, which makes playing there really, really fun. I miss the city of Cleveland. I miss the community. I miss the fans. It was a team where I was really involved, in the community and, team, and it made the experience playing there so much better. We had a couple of rough seasons while I was there, in terms of wins and losses, but really respected the coaches, really respected all the people in the building. I have friends to this day that, were teammates that I continue to keep in touch with and reminisce about. And we had a lot of fun moments on the field. We won a lot of big games. We had a lot of big moments. And it is an experience that I look back on fondly.
So speaking of some of those moments, what really sticks out in your mind as being one of your favorite all time?
Oh my goodness. I mean, probably we played in, a big game in 2018 in Denver, I believe, that had some big playoff implications. This was right before the Browns actually made the playoffs, I think a year or two later. Getting Myles Garrett in the building after draft night, getting Baker Mayfield in the building after draft night. These were all exciting times for the organization and for our team. Many of these guys are still crushing it, either on the Browns or elsewhere in the NFL today. I think me personally, I got my first catch my rookie year against the New York Jets with my brothers in attendance for the first time. All three of my older siblings flew out for the game. It was kind of nice to get your first catch in front of the family. I think I got my first touchdown on Thursday Night Football my rookie year. And then always getting in the end zone, in all the years following. It's some of my personal favorites.
It's always fun. It has to be a great story to consider your first touchdown is on a platform like Thursday Night Football, because it's when you have all the football eyes in America on you. And football, it really is such a family sport. We talk about it all these times during these interviews about how, you're on the field and you're playing and you're doing what you're paid to be doing, but the impact of that goes so much further because there are people at home watching with their brother, sister, friends, coworkers, and those memories, I can still sit here and think to myself watching the Thanksgiving game, 1993, Miami Dolphins and Dallas Cowboys, one of the most famous games to me all time because it was snowing. And you think of those teams and you're like, well, that Dallas and Miami, how did the logistics work out for that? But it was, and it was just like you had the Leon Lett fumble into the end zone that the Dolphins recover, and it's just like I remember being with my grandparents. Now, at this point in my life, both deceased. But there's just such good memories that football bring to people, and it's good to hear that it's not just us two that get to experience that, but you get to experience that as well. You mentioned a little bit about having some tough times in Cleveland. And listen, I'm a Northeast Ohio kid for 40 years, so I fully understand the concept of Brown's misery. And they're going through it right now a little bit as well, where I think the expectations for what the team was capable of hasn't fully manifested, right? If you watch the 4 games that were played thus far, there has not been a single situation where everybody has fired on all cylinders, right? You have games where Watson looks like he doesn't belong in the NFL, but the people around him are doing everything they can to make him look good. Yesterday was almost opposite, where Watson played at I think, a very high level, and some of the pieces around him kind of didn't have their best stuff. Ultimately, where I'm going with this is there was a very controversial call that ultimately changes the way that the game ends up getting played, where there was a holding call that brought back a monster Amari Cooper touchdown, and ultimately, some of those problems ended up manifesting later in the game when the Browns were making what could have been a game-winning drive. As someone who's been in the locker rooms and has probably experienced at every level of competition, something outside of the norm happening that kind of robs you of what would be an almost certain victory. What do you do to prepare for the next week? How do you not let it sink in that things aren't going well, and when they finally seemed like they were turning a corner, the other foot dropped, and you're 1-3?
Yeah, it's a great question, and hopefully there's a lot of perspective that I can offer. I mean, you hear athletes say it at the podium a lot. It sounds like interview prep, but it's really true. I mean, the league is 1 week at a time, and even coming back from a large deficit, it's one play at a time, it's one drive at a time. Um, you hear the GOAT of our sport, Tom Brady, talk about their comeback in their Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons, and his mindset was just like, all right, we're down like 4 scores, 4 possessions at least, and let's just focus on getting the first touchdown. You it really starts in the week of practice. Like, yeah, the Browns are off to a start that they didn't envision themselves in. But in order to win on Sunday, you got to win in this Wednesday practice. You got to win in your Tuesday and Monday mental preparation. And listen, like you touched on a lot of interesting things. First of all, I think the Browns have 2 really good ones in Kevin Stefanski and Rosen Berry. I have a ton of respect for those guys. I think they're really, really good at their jobs. I think that being said, you can still get off to a 1-3 start, right? Deshaun Watson has played up and down. Yesterday, as you said, was probably his best game. But the Browns have also, not had their full cast of characters on the field at one time yet. Deshaun has been running around a little bit. I know both our right and left tackles are still sidelined. Hopefully we'll get them back eventually. But when you have a mobile quarterback, as Deshaun is, and when you have some O-line injuries, you start moving around the pocket a lot, and that is, quite frankly, when holding penalties happen. Offensive linemen are very much programmed to kind of protect the pocket. They know that the defensive line has an aiming point that they're trying to get to, and almost like playing basketball on defense, the offensive line are protecting that aiming point like they're protecting the basketball, right? That aiming point is Deshaun, right? When Deshaun gets outside of the pocket, that's when holding penalties start to happen, because you can be engaged, you can have your hands wrapped around the defender's shoulder pads as long as your hands are inside, but as soon as that defender starts to move, because he can see the aiming point move, the offensive lineman necessarily can't, right? That's when you got to let go. And the call yesterday, listen, I know there's probably been a lot said and written about it. He did let go. And in the process of letting go, he kind of let go I think it was his left hand a little bit later. And the refs are programmed, especially when the pocket's moving like that, to look for those calls. And Man, it was a great play. It was a great catch and run by Mark Cooper. It was a great throw. It was indicative of the type of day Deshaun was having. But man, yeah, obviously it's really tough. It's really tough to swallow. The call could have gone either way. It's by the letter of the law, it's the right call, probably. Um, but you pick the pieces back up one day at a time, one practice at a time, and then one drive at a time once you get going on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. And I mean, for me, it was just a convergence of a lot of things where Amari was having a very bad game. You cannot put it any more bluntly than that. He's been, last week, he was the Amari that you know he can be, but it's been a tough start to the season for him. But that goes for every facet. It felt like in one play, you felt like, oh my God, like, this is Watson. Oh my God, Cooper fixed himself. Oh my God, the offensive line held up. And then with one flag, you're like, nope, everything's back to normal. We come crashing down to reality. One thing I will say is I'm very appreciative of people like Myles Garrett who are willing to stand up in front of the media. And when they get questioned on things like, do you feel like the fans have the right to boo? Is willing to say, yeah, they pay money for this. They support us. They enable me to be able to do the things I do. They're entitled to that. It doesn't, I'm sure it feels terrible on the field in the moment when you hear your fans boo, but at the same time, I like that vulnerability and it shows that they care, and you have to have people who care. And I think, largely speaking, plays like that, we have to accept that scoring is down in the NFL. There was not a 300-yard passer on the season until Andy Dalton in 2024 passed for 300 yards. Now, Burrow did the next day, so you had two, but this weekend we had Alabama and Georgia, which is going to go down as one of the all-time classic college football games. And then it's like there's nothing on Sunday that compares to it, and that holding call that was made – it's arguable that it could be made on 90% of scrambles, and you shouldn't be calling it on the one that has a big play that makes the NFL feel a little more exciting. That's my opinion. We'll move on from it. You've been gone from the sport for a few years now. I'm sure you gained a great deal of a perspective. You can tell when you talk about, when you're faced with questions like I asked about what do you do. What advice do you have for current Browns players and just NFL players in general to just make the most out of their time in the league?
Yeah. Yeah, it goes fast. Quite honestly, I thought I'd have a couple more years than I did. But your body gives you what it gives you. I eventually was pushed away because my body wasn't quite giving me what I needed it to. And in many cases, you never know when that time's going to come, right? So this is not something they've never heard before, but you need to make the most of your window, right? I was given a window of opportunity between 2016 and 2021, and I'd like to say I made the most of it. I did really only one thing. Like I just played football and studied football. I didn't try to delegate my time to a lot of other things. Um, there's really high talented individuals who can kind of get away with diverting their attention in certain ways, but the greats, they don't do that. And the rest of the league doesn't do that, right? It's really hard to compete at the highest level for a long time. And you need to treat it with that kind of respect. You need to be very cautious with the type of stresses you put on your body outside of football. You need to be very structured with your time in season and off season in terms of getting your workouts in, getting your in season film sessions in, getting the recovery. Um, and the other thing I would tell to players is make sure you're having fun, right? Um, the higher levels you go in football, the more that's on the line, the more careers that are on the line. Um, we always like to say that everybody touches each other's pockets in the building because we all affect the careers of the people sitting beside us and the coaches that are standing in front of us, right? So at times it can feel very stressful. It can feel very big and important, and it is. But you need to take the moments to have fun, being out in the sunshine every day for your job, being on the grass, playing a game that we all love and is such a cultural mainstay in our society, as you did that earlier. It is a privilege. It's an absolute privilege to get to play the game for a living. And when you get a first down, celebrate. You get a touchdown, celebrate. Like I think looking back on my career, I think there was moments that I could have taken the time to celebrate and had more fun, but at times I was a little bit too serious. Right? It's so fun, and nowadays when I'm just sitting and watching, I have a blast watching it. And it is a fun thing to get to do. So take it seriously, so that you can perform on the field. But when you're on the field, show your character and enjoy that, you're living out your dream.
It's really good advice, and I think to your point about taking care of yourself and all of that. Look at what guys like Derrick Henry, $250,000 a year on his diet, and for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been Derrick Henry's getting up there in age. Running backs fall off, and then he runs for 200 yards. And you're like, nope, this man is built different. He is working to be the exception to the rule. Brady was spending $1 million or more on his body, and look how long he managed to play. And listen, there's guys at varying skill levels. Everyone who makes the NFL is at the top, like 0.00001% of people who play football. But it's having the ability to put in a little extra work a lot of times that really gets you to that next level. So now that you're out of football, as you said, in 2021, so you've been about 3 or 4 years out, what are you up to in the real world?
Yeah. Well, my wife and I have moved back to Jersey, which is where she's from and where both met at Princeton College. We're really enjoying kind of the Northeast and the tri-state area. We're right outside New York City. Um, we're back close to our families again. Towards the end of my career, it was kind of during the pandemic, we were kind of in, further away places, and we didn't enjoy that time much, right? I don't think any of us enjoyed that time much. But we're enjoying being back close to family. Thinking about starting a family of our own here soon. I'm working now, just like everybody else. I'm a machine learning engineer, and I am getting used to this new stage of life. What's interesting about football players is we call it a career, and it really is, but I think people forget about the fact that these careers really started when we were 7 or 8 years old. So yeah, I'm 31. It feels weird to say that I retired from a particular career, but it's true. Like my career was over 20 years playing football and kind of living the lifestyle that it took to play at a high level. And when that comes to a screeching halt, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, early 40s, if you're Tom Brady, it's a big adjustment, right? Like there's a lot that you miss. There's a lot that you look forward to as well. Um, I miss a lot, but what I've discovered is that stepping away from the game has allowed me to dream new dreams. Um, my dream for so long was just to be a basketball player, like, um, and to earn a living doing it, which I was lucky enough to do. And it's been really interesting to stop playing and see all the creative space in my mind that have been made room for now that football is kind of not dominating my mental headspace. And, that's been probably the best part about it. It's just discovering these new things like that, working towards like.
Well, that's really great to hear. And I mean, you can definitely use some of that Princeton education to help yourself out, Smarty Pants.
Yeah.
Um, I forgot about that. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick was also a fellow Princeton alum. I could be wrong with that, but you smart guys make it in the NFL. Oh, he did go to Harvard. Yeah.
Our GM is a Princeton alum. His
Okay.
brother Adam is a Harvard alum. There's Ivy League guys all over the front offices in the field still. So, the Ivy League football pedigree is deep in there. Anyways.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Speaking of awesome, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that next March, we're going to head out on the Liberty of the Seas. We're going to go to Nassau and Perfect Day at Coco Cay. Seth, have you been cruising before?
This will be my first cruise. This will be my first experience at it. And, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yes, it's going to be a fun time. We had a lot of great feedback from the 2024 edition of the Fan Cruise. The fans loved it. But I got to tell you, I think the alumni enjoyed it just as much as the fans did, because for a lot of alumni, it's not like we're taking 15 guys who played on the same team together. We're going back into the expanses of Cleveland Browns history, and in some instances, I mean, there might be people who were on the cruise that wore a Browns uniform that you weren't even alive to see, and I think it's really cool, and they all seemed to really love the ability to hear the stories about what it was like during that time of playing for the Cleveland Browns. This is going to be so action-packed, it's loaded. We've got question and answer sessions, trivia sessions, dinner with the alumni. We've got multiple parties. We're going to be doing activities on the beach. Is there something specifically that you hear in there that you get really excited about and you can't really wait to do?
Well, first of all, I'm excited to interact. As I said earlier, the fans are one of the main things that makes playing food so special. We talked about a lot of things earlier in the conversation, but they're bought in, and they show when they're disappointed, but they also show their support all the time, how much they care about the organization and the success of the organization. And it is, whether or not football players will admit it or not, I think we all appreciate hearing the stories of how our careers were meaningful in ways that we didn't even realize. And interacting with fans is one of the best ways, to hear those stories and to, also, tell them how much we appreciate them. And the other thing that you already mentioned is connecting with the Browns player alumni more broadly. You and I and some of the other alumni were on a call, earlier this month, and I'm excited some of those guys I have met before, some of them I have not. It's going to be a special opportunity to kind of have 4 dedicated days to, kind of interact with the fans, but also interact with my brothers of the sport, of different eras, of different experiences. It'll be a really, really neat opportunity. And some of my personal teammates will be there too that I'll look forward to reconnecting. So there's many, many things. I didn't even mention the beach, but the beach next too.
Well, definitely it sounds like you're excited, and we're all excited too. And we want to thank you for your time today. Before we head out here, I did want to ask you, are you a social media guy? Is there anywhere that people can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. My social handles are at Seth DeValve, lowercase, no spaces. I am less active these days, so don't go looking for too much. But I have some plans to start posting more here soon. Yeah, I'd love to interact with folks on social media if they're willing.
Well, that's awesome. Make sure to go follow him there, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Browns Fan Cruise. That's all for today, Dog Pound. Remember, the Browns Fan Cruise is setting sail March 3rd through the 7th on board the Liberty of the Seas. Don't miss this chance to cruise with awesome alumni like Seth himself and all your fellow Browns fans. For more information and to book your cabin now, head over to brownsfancruise.com. I'm Nick Valinchak, and I'll see you on board.